For much of my young Caucasian life, Silicon Valley has been a whimsical candy land of office ping pong, fuchsia nap pods, and surprisingly boring threesomes with the Winklevoss twins behind the kombucha tap. But lately, the big swinging pendulum of tech culture has swung noticeably back in a significantly more hardo direction. I should know, because they post about it all the time.
Been going harder than ever, I don't have time to sit and relax.
In San Francisco, you're very high status if you work very hard.
My day usually kicks off around 4:30 in the morning.
I literally just pulled a couple of 12-hour stays.
All the companies I was interviewing with were like, we work 7 days a week in office, or like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
SF tech workers are working Saturdays.
In a typical week, I work pretty much every waking hour.
92 hours per week.
I'm either sleeping or around the people that I work with.
Well, some of us have the balls to sleep with the people we work with. But I digress. So what happened? What compelled this new generation of baby-faced nerds to suddenly start grinding their dicks off? It's time to take a look-see. If you're looking for a job at a high-flying tech startup today, it won't be uncommon to find descriptions demanding you work 12-plus-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week. This is a noticeable shift from the tech culture of the open office scene, a 10-year period during the Obama years when Silicon Valley-type companies were dominated by the stupidest office amenities that could be conjured by the great millennial brain.
Facebook has the classic Silicon Valley office style. There are games to give your brain a rest from programming, or you can ripstick and work on a knotty coding problem at the same time.
We have open climbing time that's free for employees or interns.
The rooms Google has created include ski gondolas in the Zurich office, a pub-like meeting room in Dublin, and a sidewalk cafe in Istanbul.
No workplace is complete without a nap pod.
This is a conference room in here.
It's the idea behind this is the employees should own their individual space and be as creative as possible, and we shouldn't get in the way.
Ah, yes, what a dream it must have been to get laid off by some crisscross applesauce 20-something inside of the Android mascot play place.
A big turning point was the day that Elon Musk took over Twitter, now known as X, and declared this was going to be a hardcore work environment, and anyone who didn't want to sleep under their desk could just quit now.
Margaret O'Mara is a professor and historian of Silicon Valley, and the man that she is referring to is Elon Reeve Musk, a South African internet personality born in 1971.
That kind of gave permission for other companies to swing away from a kind of kinder, gentler capitalism, let's call it, and say, yeah, if we're going to really be, really compete, let's get down to basics. Let's work on developing and shipping product, and that's going to require a lot of hard work.
Indeed, when it comes to what some young startup employees have called the Great Lock-in, Elon may actually have just been the last straw to, how you say, gag the camel. But it's not just Musk that's got these keyboard warriors sweating it out.
There's another dynamic going on in San Francisco too called escaping the permanent underclass. And it's this idea that the gains of the AI boom are going to go to a top few and everybody else is going to live in virtual serfdom.
Raya Jetta is a reporter for the San Francisco Standard covering tech culture in Silicon Valley who introduced me to some very chill-sounding ideas.
Some tech founders I meet are kind of like, I need to work really hard right now so I can escape the permanent underclass, and they truly believe that that's the direction the world is going in.
Now, I don't know if any of you folks have heard of something called AI, but it's a technological development that is causing the great people of San Francisco to go bat fucking insane. There's a belief spreading across certain sects of the valley that once AI gets smart enough, it will divide the world into two groups: a permanent underclass of unemployed people who have had their jobs taken over by artificial intelligence, and a small group of super rich people who built the one super AI to rule them all for the rest of time. And while all of this sounds like a shitty YA novel set to turn into an even shittier movie, there are admittedly some objective reasons an anxious young software engineer might come to this conclusion. Like how right now the big tech kahunas keep firing people and blaming the layoffs on advances in artificial intelligence, while dozens of AI startups are turning their founders into billionaires.
You're constantly being fed the narrative like by these big companies like Microsoft saying like, we're replacing a bunch of our early to mid-level engineers with AI, right?
Maceo Quick. Well, he's a software engineer and startup founder in New York City who started his career working long hours at a tech startup.
You're thinking, I am 21, I just graduated college, I don't have a ton of work experience. If AI does replace a bunch of software engineers, I'm definitely not high on the totem pole. Like, I'm probably going to be one of the people who's struggling to find a job. And when you have that kind of anxiety in the back of your mind, it's pretty easy to put off like, oh, I'll live life later. Maybe, especially at startups, the whole mindset is if this makes it big, I'm gonna become a multimillionaire, right? Even when I was applying for that job and I was interviewing with other startups, it was more common than not to be 996. So it would be more uncommon for them to be like, yes, we have great work-life balance.
And for those who are unaware, 996 is what?
9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week.
For working?
For working.
Just straight working?
Yes.
The so-called 996 work schedule was popularized by big Chinese tech firms like Alibaba and ByteDance. Then American companies imported it from China, even though it sucks. And since then, it's become one of those half meme, half reality things where people post a ton just to show off how hard they grind. How much of this is like people being performative online, and how much of it is people actually prescribing to a true proper Chinese 996 schedule?
It's funny, yeah, we've got Chinese peptides, Chinese work culture, what's actually really happening here. But basically, I would say a large part of it is performative. And so, and we can sort of get up in arms about like, they're performative, they're pretending, those sorts of things.
Jaden Clark is a podcast host and Silicon Valley commentator known as Creatine Cycle on Twitter, where he's exposed to thousands of tech bros bragging about their workload.
There actually is a little bit of utility to it when you kind of dig a little bit. You might be performing for VCs, for example, so venture capitalists, right? If you can sort of display your grind set, a lot of decision makers, a lot of VCs, a lot of LPs tend to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, a lot of VCs tend to spend a lot of time on X.com. So it really is just like a surface area thing. And I would say, if it helps you get in front of these VCs, half of the battle is just getting the meeting when it comes to raising venture capital. And so if that converts to a meeting, great. That I would say job done. Do you risk coming across as cringe? Yes. Are VCs cringe a lot of the time? Also, yes.
Folks, you ever wonder if there's more out there? If there's more to this life than just work and friends and the touch of a loved one and nature and happiness, well, I'm here to tell you that there is. There are more investigations out there, more interviews, more answers questioned. And it's all on patreon.com/goodwork. That's right, this wondrous universe still has more for you to discover. Like our live investigation into the aesthetic empowerment and closeted homosexuality of looksmaxing. Being an incel, that is not the worst thing that you can be in the looksmaxing community. Extended interviews. Essentially meaning, is this event going to happen or won't it?
Exactly. So
and full YouTube videos that don't have overly dramatic advertisements smack dab in the middle of them. So come on, you look great, and we'd love to see you there. So sign up today at patreon.com/goodwork. Mwah. If you're a burgeoning tech startup, you want hardworking employees. That's Philippians 4:13. But you also want $100 million bestowed upon you by the pantheon of Silicon Valley gods known as venture capitalists. And that's one of the reasons LinkedIn and X are flooded with companies, founders, and engineers trying to publicize that they'll do nothing except drink Celsius and vibe code until they've excreted the next software unicorn. And while this might seem pretty hardcore to those who grew up around Google Cuddle Puddles, it actually harkens back to the founding era of Silicon Valley.
One historical parallel comes with the semiconductor industry in the 60s and 70s, the original industry that put the silicon into Silicon Valley. These companies like Intel, Fairchild Semiconductor, AMD, some ones that are still making chips today. Those were notoriously hardworking places. It was noticed whose car was the first in the parking lot in the day and the last one to leave at night. The people who ran those companies, many of them went on to found some of the marquee venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. And VCs are really set the tone for the culture. And, when they are investing in new founders, the next generation, picking the winners, they're not only giving them money, they're giving them mentorship. And they're like, hey, here's how you run a company. This is the sort of work culture you want to drive towards. So that chip making DNA. Kind of imagine Army barracks meets Mad Men, and that's kind of what the vibe was back then. And it was pretty hardcore.
I often do imagine that kind of scenario. I keep that in my front of mind all the time. Indeed, the culture of today's Silicon Valley represents less the kumbaya work-life balancing act of 10 years ago, and more its hard-nosed roots fertilized with techno-punk testosterone fluid. It's a new dawn. Primary colors have been replaced by blacks and grays, CEOs say the R word, and they're obsessed with bodybuilding and jujitsu and huffing raw meat.
I think the big shift that has happened now is that tech has taken on some darker undertones. It's now a power player in the White House. It's determining geopolitics. Tech bros are very self-serious. They see themselves as statesmen, and they want to work not on software but on hardware and on technology that is going to change war. I had a quote in a story I wrote about how the young AI kids don't want to go to Burning Man anymore, when that used to be the rite of passage that every young founder wants to go to. And I'm going to read this out verbatim because it's so good. He said, "The current culture is no drinking, no drugs, 996, lift heavy, run far, marry early, track sleep, eat steak and eggs."
I have a tramp stamp that also says that. So here's the situation, folks. The era of plush-walled open office spaces you can build a pillow fort in is over. If you have one in your office, light it on fire and replace it with the shrine to White Monster. Because if you want big money in Silicon Valley, you're gonna have to be a serious company built by serious people who also love shitposting on the worst social media site in existence. Fortunately, there's a whole new generation of freshly dropped out engineers who are willing to do whatever it takes to earn cash from the powers that be, because they think that if they're not part of building the super AI of the future, they're condemning themselves and their descendants to live in perpetual servitude. I should know. I got 4 of them living in my basement right now, suckling on protein mush like hamsters and vibe coding the god AI until we're all billionaires. Investors, my line is open. And for good work, I'm Dan Toomey.
And now, a moment to honor the 2010 office amenities we've lost. Giant metal slides, free bikes, bean bags, arcade games, foosball, ping pong, bowling alleys, free intern brothel housing, sushi buffets, laundry services, office dentist, office chiropractor, office acupuncturist, improv comedy classes.